Karoline Leavitt adjusted the microphone in front of her, feeling the weight of the audience's gaze. The room was packed with journalists, politicians, and onlookers, all eager to hear what she had to say. As a political aide and government official, she was used to giving speeches, but tonight was different. The Michael Jackson case had dominated the headlines, and she was about to dive headfirst into the controversy. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her firm voice echoing through the hall, "we cannot turn a blind eye to the allegations against Michael Jackson. There is enough evidence to question his innocence, and it is our duty as citizens to demand justice." Her words came out stronger than she intended. Karoline didn't have concrete proof, just suspicions and rumors circulating in the halls of power. But in that moment, driven by the conviction that she was doing the right thing, she couldn't hold back. "He is not the icon everyone thinks." "He is," she continued, ignoring the murmurs rising from the crowd. "There is something dark behind that facade, and I will not rest until the truth comes to light." The next day, the headlines were brutal. "Political aide accuses Michael Jackson without evidence," read the bold letters. Karoline tried to ignore the criticism, but soon she received a summons. Michael Jackson was suing her for defamation. The judge was merciless. In a swift decision, he fined Karoline an exorbitant amount, leaving her on the brink of financial ruin. "You can't do this," she protested in court, feeling the ground disappear beneath her feet. "I was only trying to do what's right." "The law is not based on good intentions, Miss Leavitt," the judge replied sternly. "You damage someone's reputation without concrete evidence. That has consequences." As she left the courtroom, Karoline was swarmed by reporters. Cameras followed her like vultures, capturing every expression of despair on her face. She tried to maintain her composure, but the questions felt like daggers. "How will you pay the fine, Karoline? Is your political career over? Do you regret what you said?" She didn't answer. She got into her car in silence, feeling the weight of that night like an anchor in her chest. The fine was just the beginning. Her reputation was ruined, her political connections were abandoning her, and the future she had worked so hard to build seemed to crumble before her eyes. That night, sitting alone in her apartment, Karoline stared at the ceiling, trying to find answers. How had everything gone so wrong? She only wanted to make a difference, but now she felt more lost than ever. "What do I do now?" she whispered to the emptiness, tears streaming down her face. It was the end of an era, but Karoline didn't yet know that this fall would be the start of something much greater. The following days were a whirlwind. Karoline spent hours reviewing the details of the case, trying to find something, anything, that could justify her claims. The stacks of documents on her desk seemed like an insurmountable mountain, but she couldn't give up. The fine had drained her savings, and her political career was hanging by a thread. She needed a way out. It was during one of those sleepless nights, her eyes burning from exhaustion, that she found something. A small inconsistency in a police report, something everyone had overlooked. The document mentioned a witness who had never been called to testify, someone who could have crucial information about the case. Karoline felt a chill run down her spine. What if there was more to this? What if Michael Jackson was just a pawn in a much larger game? "This can't be a coincidence," she murmured to herself, holding the document with trembling hands. The next morning, she scheduled a meeting with her mentor, Senator Thomas Green. He had been a father figure to her since her early days in Washington, and she knew she could trust him. When she entered his office, he greeted her with a look of concern. "Karoline, you look exhausted," he said, offering her a cup of coffee. "What's going on?" She took a deep breath before explaining. She told him about the inconsistency she'd found, about her suspicions that the Michael Jackson case was just the tip of the iceberg. Senator Green listened in silence, his eyes narrowing as she spoke. "This is serious, Karoline," he said finally. "If you're right, we're talking about a conspiracy involving some very powerful people. Are you prepared to face this?" Karoline hesitated. The question echoed in her mind like a warning. She knew that if she continued, she'd be risking not just her career, but also her safety. Yet something inside her wouldn't let her give up. "I don't have a choice," she replied, with a determination that surprised even herself. "If I don't do this, who will?" Senator Green studied her for a moment before nodding. "Then let's work together. But you need to be careful, Karoline, very careful." In the days that followed, Karoline dove headfirst into the investigation. She used her political connections to access classified documents, interviewed confidential sources, and began piecing together a puzzle that seemed increasingly complex. The more she uncovered, the clearer it became that Michael Jackson was just a pawn in a much larger game. But it wasn't easy. She started receiving anonymous calls, threatening text messages, and even found her car vandalized one morning. The pressure mounted, but Karoline refused to back down. Each threat only strengthened her resolve to uncover the truth. One night, while reviewing her notes, she came across a name that kept appearing: Victor Hargrove, a powerful lobbyist with connections at every level of government. He seemed to be at the center of it all, but proving it would be nearly impossible. "Hargrove," she whispered, feeling a chill run down her spine. "What are you hiding?" Karoline knew she was entering dangerous territory, but she also knew she couldn't turn back. She had found her spark, her reason to fight, and for the first time since it all began, she felt in control. "Let's end this," she said to herself, closing the file with a determined expression. It was only the beginning, but Karoline could already feel the winds changing. The fall had knocked her down, but now she was ready to rise. With the file in hand, Karoline knew she had to act fast. She couldn't give Hargrove time to realize he'd been compromised. With Senator Green's help, she organized a press conference to expose everything she had discovered. The room was packed with journalists, cameras, and onlookers. Karoline felt the weight of their stares as she stepped onto the stage. She took a deep breath, holding the file like a shield. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her firm voice echoing through the room, "today I am here to reveal the truth about a corruption scheme involving some of the most powerful people in this country." The audience fell silent, expectant. Karoline began presenting the evidence she had gathered, showing documents, financial transactions, and the names of politicians and businessmen involved. Each revelation was like a bomb, causing murmurs and gasps in the crowd. "Victor Hargrove is the mastermind behind this scheme," she continued, with a determination that surprised even herself. "He used his influence and connections to enrich himself at the expense of the people, and Michael Jackson was just one of the many victims of his manipulations." As she spoke, Karoline felt a mix of relief and anxiety. She knew she was risking everything, but she also knew it was the only way to ensure the truth came out. Midway through the press conference, the door burst open. Victor Hargrove entered, followed by his lawyers and security. His face was a mask of fury, but there was also desperation in his eyes. "This is outrageous," he shouted, pointing at Karoline. "You're slandering my name without proof." Karoline remained calm, holding the file firmly. "I have all the proof I need, Mr. Hargrove," she replied, her voice leaving no room for doubt, "and I am prepared to present it in court." The room erupted into chaos. Journalists shouted questions, cameras flashed non-stop, and Hargrove's security tried to control the situation. Karoline stood her ground, knowing she couldn't back down. "I challenge you to prove your accusations," Hargrove said with a sarcastic smile. "But know this, you'll regret it." "I'm not afraid of you," Karoline shot back, with a determination that surprised even herself. "The truth always comes out, and today is the day it will be revealed." With Senator Green's help, Karoline managed to regain control. She presented the evidence clearly and convincingly, leaving little room for doubt. The media and the public rallied behind her, and the judge, who had fined Karoline earlier, was forced to reconsider his decision. Based on the evidence presented, the judge said in a public statement, the fine against Karoline Leavitt is overturned. Furthermore, Victor Hargrove will be investigated for his actions. It was a resounding victory, but Karoline knew the fight was far from over. Hargrove and his allies wouldn't go down without a fight, and she needed to be ready for what was to come. Still, in that moment, she allowed herself a sense of relief. The truth had been revealed, and she had done the right thing. Karoline looked out at the crowd, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. "Thank you all for believing in me," she said, her voice emotional. "This is just the beginning of a fight we cannot afford to lose." The audience erupted into applause, and Karoline felt a wave of emotion. She knew there was still much work to be done, but she also knew she was on the right path. "Let's end this," she whispered to herself, with a determined smile. The truth had triumphed, and Karoline was ready to face whatever came next. In the days following the press conference, Karoline felt a mix of relief and accomplishment. The truth had been revealed, and Victor Hargrove was under investigation. The media couldn't stop talking about the case, and Karoline became a figure known for her courage and determination. Sitting in her apartment, she looked at the documents that had changed her life. Each page, each word, was a testament to her struggle and her victory. She knew there was still much work to be done, but she also knew she had taken the first step toward a better future. "I did the right thing," she whispered to herself, feeling a weight lift off her shoulders. Senator Green called her that night, his voice filled with pride. "You made history, Karoline," he said. "What you did will inspire many people to fight for the truth." "Thank you, Thomas," she replied with a smile. "I couldn't have done it without your help." "You're stronger than you think, Karoline. Never forget that." When she hung up, Karoline looked out at the horizon, feeling a peace she hadn't known in a long time. She knew the fight for justice would never end, but she also knew she was on the right path. "Let's end this," she said to herself, with a determined smile. The truth had triumphed, and Karoline was ready to face whatever came next. If you enjoyed this inspiring story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gripping narratives like this one. Leave a like if you believe Karoline is a true hero, and comment below. What would you do in her place? Do you think justice always prevails, even against the most powerful? Together, we can share more stories that inspire, move, and make us reflect. Until the next video.